Welcome to Practical Talk Time. I'm your host, Usha Kumar. Today I have with me a wonderful author from Wolcott, Connecticut, Michael L. Kilday. He's written several books. In his recent book won the 2013 award from the Connecticut Press Club, and that is Yippie's Lament. And he's here to discuss that book with us.
Thank you for having me, Usha.
Welcome to the show. It is so nice to have you here. In the last time we discussed your 3 books.
My series, Truth Never Changes.
Yeah, Truth Never Changes, Earth Changes, that was the first one. The second one was Truth Never Changes.
Genesis of the Path.
Genesis of the Path, okay. And the third one?
Truth Never Changes, Conceiving a Spiritual Democracy.
All those 3 books were wonderful reading, and I hope people get them so they can read it and really understand some crucial things that they need for their lives. Today we'll talk about your book, the award-winning book. Mm-hmm. I have to tell you, I read that book, and it is such easy reading, nice little stories, and they're all true, I suppose, because because you wrote them from your own experiences.
Yes. Yes, I did.
And the book explores the counterculture in the 60s and in the early 70s, right?
Yep.
So was that the hippie generation, or what, or the current baby boomer generation?
Well, we were yippies, and the difference really between a hippie and a yippie was that a yippie was a member of the Youth International Party, as started by Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin. And the yippies were the anti-war protesters, you know, of that era. I mean, if you saw the movie Forrest Gump, and you saw at the Washington Monument at the reflecting pool, that was the yippies. Yippies and hippies look basically the same. But I think the hippies themselves were, you know, a little bit older, like your older brother would probably have been a hippie.
Oh, so the younger of the group
a little bit
was
younger.
Yippies. But you
bit.
had some important message for the world, right? You wanted to change some things?
We wanted to change everything. We took the peace, love, and, you know, the hippie credo was peace, love, and forgiveness, pretty much like what Jesus would have taught. The yippies were more politically oriented, where they wanted freedom, they wanted liberty, they wanted self-determination for themselves. No one wanted to, you know, go to Vietnam and offer up their life for something they didn't believe in.
Today, when you say yippie or hippie, you know, they're kind of almost considered derogatory, or sometimes even have a negative connotation, because that is how the government wanted to portray at some time, right?
Yes, yeah, dirty, filthy hippies. It's because we're a thorn in the side. I mean, especially to Nixon. And I have a couple of chapters in there about Nixon and about how we felt about him and his shenanigans, if I could use one of their words, you know, to subvert freedom and democracy for the rest of us.
Your book kind of spans a period of 50 years almost.
Yes. And
you start the book with your first experience on college campus, right?
No.
Where was that?
No, it wasn't with my first experience.
It was not in college?
Yeah, after I had left college.
Oh, it was after. Okay.
I really started it in the 80s. And I'll tell you, the reason that I really wrote this book was because my first son was going to high school at the time. And being a teacher, being a former teacher, I would ask him what he learned in school that day. And when he told me what he was learning in history class, I said, no, that didn't happen. I was there. It didn't happen that way. And so I would have to correct them.
So what did he learn? What was being...
Well, how the hippies and the yippies were just, criminal elements of society, that they were just deviants who just did drugs, and
Yeah, they challenged authority.
and they just challenged authority, but it was much more than that. They weren't being taught the entire story. They were just only being shown a sliver of that story because it was advantageous for the powers that be to paint them that way, because they didn't want to repeat. They didn't want another generation out in the streets challenging their authority.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I started writing the book.
Let's see. Was it also about the Vietnam War?
Yes, it was
and
also about the
anti-war
Vietnam War.
protests?
Well, I think all wars fought for profit are the same. I mean, the Iraq War was a profit-driven war. There was no principle involved here.
Yeah.
Just Vietnam, it was a Cold War adventure, that the United States was having, so that they could expand their economic empire. That's how we saw it. That it was that's all it was about. The military-industrial complex. And if you go back...
So they didn't convince you enough in those days, as they did by getting us into the war with Iraq?
Not after I saw Eisenhower's farewell speech in 1960, when he was warning the American public of the military-industrial complex and telling you, don't go that way. And it was kind of like George Washington did much the same thing, warning the people of the foreign entanglements, and here we were, sending our sons to die in the third world.
In the Far East, yeah.
It wasn't what they wanted.
And the war kept going on and on for many years too.
The war went on to 1975. And we kind of had our ignominious escape from the war. You remember all the pictures of South Vietnamese people climbing up onto the helicopters when they were leaving the tops of buildings while they were being shot at. Yeah, it wasn't a great exit. But that was just part of the experience. There was another side, to the experience.
What was that?
Woodstock,
Okay.
the Summer of Love, which was the bright spot, I think, of the whole thing.
Well, my husband and I still go to that area called Woodstock
We do.
in New York just to reminisce. Although we both grew up in India, we were still reading all the news items and all the press articles on what was happening here in the US, and we were pretty much following it there. And for us, it was a big thing to just go there, and every time we went there, it kind of rained.
It rained when I was there too.
All the time, right?
Yeah.
And we'd just sit there nostalgic and talking about all the old things that happened there. I don't even know if the current generation of Americans know that.
I think a lot do, because it was widely publicized. I think that it's kind of the last, the final Woodstock was kind of a disaster, and I kind of put a little bit about that in the book because my son was, I think he was like 18 or 19 years old when, that was 1999. So
what happened?
So it was a disaster. Really was. They're charging kids $4 for a bottle of water. Part of the compound was burned to the ground. So kind of left a bad taste.
After that, you don't want to go there.
I doubt that there would be a repeat after that experience. But I went there when I was 19 years old, and I'll sit in the mud in the rain and watch Janis Joplin and the Who, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Why not? I mean, at 19 years old. I mean, when you're 19 years old, you don't much care. I'm 64 now. I don't think I could take that, you know, to be sitting in the cold.
I'm thinking about that generation of people. Are they satisfied with their lives now, or are they disappointed with their lives? And if so, what's the reason?
I think the baby boomer generation has been polarized in so many different directions that it depends upon who you talk to.
I see.
Because some of them might be Tea Party right now. Some of them might be like me.
And what is that?
Is pretty far to the left of the spectrum, you know, almost to the point of anarchy, because I found that I can't trust anybody. I can't trust anybody with my freedom. And that's very upsetting, actually.
It is upsetting that so many policies are being made in Washington, and they've been happening in the past several years, that are not really good for the people.
No.
In terms of freedom, really. But they talk about freedom as if, to be able to carry guns is freedom. Yeah, that is one of the freedoms, but more important freedoms have been taken away, right? At this point.
A lot of freedoms. I mean, the freedom not to be observed on the street by cameras. There, in the Constitution, there's in Bill of Rights. There's no actual, you know, word, you know, verbiage that says "Thou shalt not be put on camera" when thou is not aware of it. But
no, with the Patriot Act and everything else, we've gotten a lot of things that are there that should not be there, and
probably
people are not noticing it, or not even aware of it, I guess.
I think that they look upon it now as a necessary evil. There's an awful lot of people. Look at the Occupy movement. They don't like it. I'm on Twitter a lot, and I'm associated. You know, I talk to the Occupy people and the anonymous people, and they're much younger than I am, quite often, and they don't like anything that's going on. They don't like Republicans or Democrats.
The Occupy Wall Street peoples, to me, appear very much like your Yippies in those days, because they don't really have a leader. They want to just address some points or some problems with the government or corporations. But then I think they ought to get organized better and really have a leader with a third party or something.
Well, it's like herding cats.
That's harder to do.
That's hard. It's hard to organize anarchists. I don't think it's ever been done throughout history.
See, that is the problem. I think in our previous show, when we were talking about your 3 books, the series, we were talking about individual thinking, people being able to think for themselves.
Yes.
But then therein lies a problem of trying to get them together too.
Yes.
Where people can think alike and follow a leader, then it's just easier to have that group going.
Yeah, it's very difficult. It was very difficult then. It's just as difficult now. There's so much information thrown at you. Sometimes you don't know what to think.
Yeah, the baby boomer generation. If there is a bulk group of them really disappointed now, what are they disappointed with their achievements, or what they thought their life was going to be like, what was it?
I think that it's like they fell off the mountain. It's like they climbed the mountain and then they fell off of it.
Economically, or in what way?
Everything that you ever worked for is not worth what it once was. And there was a time back in the 1970s you could live on $1 a day.
Yes.
There's no possible way you could do that now. Absolutely no possible way. So, you know, economics has a lot to do with it. And economics is really what people affects them the most, because that's the closest issue to them. A lot of, you know, you don't find the high principled people anymore.
Are they also disenchanted with politics?
Completely. I think they like neither side. really, of the political spectrum, because neither side has served their need.
So we are having policies constantly being made by corporations, really.
Yes.
And
Yes.
corporate lawyers are writing the laws.
Right, so-
You do handle that in the book, right?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I have my own points of, because, what I think the solution is, actually. I have a chapter in there called Hard Choices, because that's kind of what it's all about. It's about hard choices. So I came up with 7 what I think are the solutions, to our problem. Number 1 is rewrite the 14th Amendment. That's the personhood amendment.
So what should be written there?
That only an individual person has rights.
Yeah, but now they already passed it in the Supreme Court that the corporation has rights now.
Well, that was a mistake. That was a mistake, because a corporation is not a person.
Yes.
You're a person.
I agree.
I'm a
I
person.
agree, yeah. Especially I'm from financial background, corporate background.
Yeah, so am I.
And I know that it should not be like that.
No, should not be like that.
It could be an entity, but not equivalent to a human being.
No, should not have the same rights.
Yeah.
They should have rights,
Yeah.
but there should not be the same rights that an individual has. That
So
would
the
be the
14th
first thing.
Amendment, okay? The 14th.
That would be the first thing. The second thing would be get the money out of politics completely.
Oh,
Completely and utterly.
that is something I hear all sensible people talking about, but the mainstream politics doesn't want to get rid of it.
Well, you've got a lot of money at stake here.
And there is more money there on that side than this side,
Yes.
okay? That's a good
Completely and
point.
utterly. All airtime is free. There are no political contributions.
Yeah.
So because they're not going to be necessary.
Yeah, okay.
Because everything's going to be free. Third thing would be I'd make lobbying illegal. All the lobbyists go to jail if they show up on the Hill. They just go to jail.
But who's going to pass that? Because right
No one's
now,
gonna pass
if you look at the election results, it shows all the people that are going to maintain the things that you want to change. They don't want to change those. They've already put in a lot of money into making the laws the way they
Yeah.
have it.
These are just the
So
solutions.
the people have to get involved in this, the individual citizen, all right?
These are just the solutions I came up with. I
Okay.
realized that no one's ever going to do this.
Okay, you finish, yeah, the next point?
The rich have to share with the poor. No more hoarding. They have to share their abundance. Now, I don't know how you're going to get them to do that.
The opposite is what has been happening in the last 25 years that I know of.
Yeah. If you look
The employees are getting squeezed more and more to put in more hours and take lower pay or get pay cuts, while the other group keeps increasing their
I know.
stake and returns.
I have statistics in my book that I couldn't believe when I got these statistics, and a lot of the statistics came from organizations like the UN and the University of New York, and Caltech, and this is what they're coming up with.
But what I'm seeing from the election results is that it looks like all of these people don't know that they are being affected, or they are not affected by these laws and these changes in the government.
Do you mean the 99%?
The people that are voting and who have voted all these people in now, re-elected folks that should not have been re-elected.
It's beyond my understanding why you would vote against your economic interest. I don't understand.
But because they believe that it is in their economic interest.
It is.
Or in their whatever other
Not
interest.
to get
Maybe not economic, maybe something
I don't
else,
know.
political.
I don't
interest.
know. Not to get a raise is not in your economic interest, because I see very little of that happening, but I don't see any CEO that ever doesn't get a raise.
Yeah.
And so I wonder what they're thinking when they step into that voting booth. I just wonder what they're thinking. Thomas Frank, who was from the state of Kansas, wrote a book about what's the matter with Kansas. And I do mention it in my book. And he came to the same conclusion. He couldn't understand it either. Why would you vote against your own economic interests? It didn't make any sense. It still doesn't make any sense.
No, I think they don't make the connection, or they do not understand at all what is really happening. It's just ignorance.
I just don't get it.
On someone. And what's your next one?
Social Security is not an entitlement program. That's our money. We invested in Social Security. I guess you have to remind people that.
Very interesting, but very true, I guess.
Yep. Then we have to remove power, position, patronage, and privilege from the operating model of government. And the country of Iceland did that very effectively about 5 years ago.
What did they do?
They threw the government out. The people got together and actually threw the government out. They fired their entire government. They put their bankers in jail.
And then who
and they
took
survived.
Over?
They declared that they actually declared no one had any debt anymore. They made that declaration. And they got away with it. And they survived.
Well, I think in a smaller country such as Iceland, and with a more homogeneous population, such a thing might be possible.
Yeah.
Over here, it's going to be harder.
Oh, that'd be,
because there's a lot more money and more power involved. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They're not going to relinquish control. They're not.
But what about the American? Oh, I wanted to tell you, this book. This is so wonderful because looking at the title, I thought it'll be a whiny book, and not at all. It was not whining about anything. It was showing all the real things that happened and the way things are really in the facts. And so no one can dispute facts.
Nope. You can have a different opinion about the facts, but you can't dispute the facts.
Yeah. And the nice thing I'm finding also in your book is that not only do you point out the problems, but you also have the solutions that you just mentioned. So you're not just complaining about something, but you're saying, hey, we can fix it by doing these things.
We can fix it.
It's very interesting reading that way. I want to know about the folks that are disappointed, and what was the American dream 50 years ago, and what is considered the American dream today? And how did that old American dream die?
How did it started dying.
What was it? What was the American dream?
Oh, the American dream? A job. It was the Protestant ethic. First of all, the Protestant ethic basically says, if I work hard and I'm honest and I'm forthright and I try to be as good as I can, which means essentially I observe the golden rule, I will succeed. I will succeed. Okay. And nothing can really stop me. The American dream is that everyone has the right to make a living, own property, have a family, have them be safe and secure and as much as is humanly possible.
So will most people feel that they're having all that now?
I think that's exactly what they think is threatened.
I see.
I think it's we live in a world where they're true or not is filled with terrorists. I find that hard to believe that the entire world is filled with terrorists. And I've always believed that one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist.
That's true.
If you were on their side, what would you think who the terrorist is? The terrorist is the person who actually threatens your life. liberty and pursuit of happiness, I think. So you can make a case that the 1% to us are doing exactly that.
Let's see. Your book really comes across really nicely with the points. It's easy to read, and I think young generation should be reading it, the younger generations, so they can understand how things were before they were born and what's happening now. Because right now they think, oh, this is just normal, this is just how it is in politics. And it wasn't like that before, or was it like that before?
I wish that they would, but I don't have any control over what anybody thinks. I would like to affect that thinking, and I think that this book probably would. They probably would affect their thinking.
And what did you write about corporate? You just have a minute left. About corporations running the country, basically.
The corporations running the country is exactly, Tom Paine doesn't want that. Never would have wanted it. I think that it would be hard to blast them out, you know, at this point. It really would. I mean, you couldn't do it gently, because no one's going to walk away from that kind of money and that kind of power, are they?
Your book is a really well-written book, and I'm so glad I read it, and I think everybody should be reading this book. They should read it once, at least.
Well, thank you very much.
And I hope you come back again with more books to show us.
I'm working.
Thank you all for watching. That was Michael L. Kilday, the great author of Connecticut. I hope you enjoyed the show. Until next time, goodbye.